The atmosphere processors on Cathara 9 had been sabotaged 3 times in the first standard week, and Sergeant Mako Okonkwo was fairly certain the planet itself was responsible. "Ma'am, the Varial delegation is requesting an emergency session," said Corporal Tenzing Sherpa, not quite managing to hide his amusement as another tremor shook their temporary command post. Dust rained from the ceiling panels rated for military installations on the most hostile worlds in the Galactic Union's catalog. Mako set down her cup of coffee, watching the dark liquid slosh against the rim without spilling. Good tremor. Maybe a 4.2. She'd felt worse during her second year at Fort Benning when they'd been testing the new artillery system. "Tell them I'll be there in 5, she said. Then added, "And Sherpa? Make sure Kowalski's squad finishes setting up those seismic dampeners before the next scheduled eruption. I don't want to listen to Ambassador Zarix complaining about another ruined meditation cycle." "Yes, ma'am." Sherpa's grin broke through. "Though between you and me, watching a 4-armed crystalline being have a panic attack is kind of, Corporal." "Right on it, ma'am." Mako pulled on her uniform jacket, checking her reflection in the polished metal panel that served as a mirror. At 43, she'd earned every gray hair, every line around her dark eyes. 25 years in the service, from Earth's African Union Defense Force to the joint human contingent in the Galactic Union military. And somehow she'd ended up here babysitting the most prestigious and controversial military training program in 5 galaxies. The Gauntlet, they called it. Officially designated as the Cathara 9 Multi-Species Combat Readiness Initiative, but everyone knew its real name, a planet engineered by the long-extinct Corvash ship specifically to kill soldiers, not quickly, not mercifully, but through endless creative brutality that would forge the survivors into the finest warriors the galaxy had ever seen, or break them completely. The Vital had wanted it shut down within 48 hours of the first human unit's arrival. Mako walked through the corridors of Outpost Reliance, humanity's naming choice, much to the bewilderment of their alien counterparts who preferred designations like Forward Operating Station Theta 7. The walls were standard military gray, but the doors were reinforced plasteel 3 times thicker than regulation. Outside those walls, Cathara 9 wanted them dead. The conference room held 7 beings who represented some of the most powerful military forces in known space. Ambassador Zarix of the Vrul occupied the largest chair, their crystalline body refracting the harsh overhead udites into rainbow patterns across the walls. General Klixnar of the Thracian Empire, insectoid and perpetually agitated, clicked his mandibles in a rhythm that Mako had learned meant deep concern. 3 other species representatives filled out the remainder, all of them staring at her with various expressions of horror, confusion and in one case, what might have been grudging respect. Sergeant Okonkwo. Zarix's voice resonated like wind chimes in a cathedral. "We have just received reports that your soldiers are playing near the sulfuric geysers in Zone 7. Volleyball, specifically," added Commander Tilara of the Pexian Union, her scaled features twisted in disbelief. "They have established what they call a court between 3 active geysers. The eruption pattern should have killed them 17 times in the last hour." Mako pulled up the tactical display on her wrist unit, scanning the telemetry from Zone 7. Sure enough, Bravo Company had set up a net, marked boundary lines with spray paint, and were currently engaged in what looked like an enthusiastic match. She could see Private Yuki Nakamura dive for a ball, roll through the warning zone of a geyser that erupted exactly 3 seconds after she cleared it, and pop up with her fist raised in victory. "They're training, Commander," Mako said simply. "Training?" Klixnar's mandibles clattered. "Training is controlled exposure to danger. This is insanity. The Corvash designed those geysers to catch soldiers in their predictable movement patterns. The heat alone is roughly equivalent to the surface temperature of Venus," Mako interrupted. "We've been training in similar environments for 2 centuries. The trick is pattern recognition and timing." She zoomed in on the display. "See how Nakamura tracks the pressure changes in the ground. Humans feel vibrations very well, and our reaction speed, while not the fastest in the galaxy, is fast enough when properly conditioned. 3 of my best units were annihilated in Zone 7 during the last cycle," Tidlara said quietly. 24 soldiers. They were Pexian Raiders, Special Forces, Sergeant. "The finest warriors my people could produce." Mako nodded respectfully. She'd read the reports. She'd studied every species' performance on Cathara 9 for the past standard year, ever since humanity had been granted access to the gauntlet. The statistics were sobering. The Thresson, with their superior strength and armored carapaces, had a 63% fatality rate in the first month of training. The Vril, who could survive in hard vacuum and didn't need to breathe, hit 58%. The Pexians, renowned for their tactical brilliance and physical prowess, had lost 71% of their trainees. Humans, after 3 months of operation, had lost exactly 3 soldiers, 1 to equipment failure, 1 to a pre-existing medical condition that screening should have caught, and Private Chen, who decided to try befriending one of the local predators, something they absolutely had been briefed not to do. With respect to your losses, Commander, Mako said carefully, our approach is different. You see Cathara 9 as a test to survive. We see it as a problem to solve. Jarex's crystalline form chimed with agitation. This planet was engineered by the Korvash during their war of consolidation. They built it to create apex predators from their soldier caste. It has claimed over 40,000 lives in the 3 centuries since the Union discovered it. The very soil is toxic. The atmosphere requires filtration. The weather patterns are chaotic beyond prediction. The native fauna are mostly ambush hunters, Mako continued, which means they rely on prey following predictable paths. Private Reeves and Charlie Company wrote a paper on it. Kid's got a degree in animal behavior from some university on Mars. He's been teaching the troops how to move in ways that confuse the predator's targeting instincts. What? Click said. Nar leaned forward. You're using academic research? We're using everything. General. We've got geologists mapping the seismic patterns, atmospheric specialists predicting the acid rain cycles, biologists studying the native life, psychologists helping with stress management, engineers redesigning equipment. Hell, we've got a staff sergeant who is a competitive chef back home figuring out how to make the rations actually taste good because nutrition and morale matter. But the Union's best scientific minds have been studying this planet for generations. Talara protested. No offense intended, Commander, but your best scientific minds weren't raised on a death world. Silence fell across the conference room. It was the uncomfortable truth that no one wanted to discuss. Earth, by galactic standards, was classified as a Class 7 hostile world. Only the desperate or the insane colonized Class 7 planets. Humans had evolved on 1. When my soldiers see a massive predator with acid blood and retractable claws, Mako continued, they don't see some unprecedented horror. They compare it to sharks, bears, crocodiles, big cats, animals they grew up learning about. When they encounter toxic plants, they think about poison ivy and oleander. When the temperature swings 60 degrees in an hour, they remember Earth's deserts and Arctic regions. This planet is brutal, yes, but it's not alien to us. Not really. You're not afraid, Jurek said, and there was something like wonder in their chiming voice. Oh, we're afraid. Mako pulled up another display showing a training exercise in progress. But humans have a saying, fear is the mind killer. We don't let it paralyze us. We acknowledge it, we respect it, and then we act anyway. The screen showed Sergeant Yael Davidov's squad moving through the Razorwing Forest, so named because the native trees had blade-sharp leaves that could slice through standard armor. The squad moved slowly, methodically, using poles to test the ground ahead, wearing modified gear with reinforced plating at vulnerable points. When a Razorwing dropped from above, a common ambush tactic, the formation shifted instantly, shields interlocking overhead while 2 soldiers moved to flank positions. The Razorwing, a serpentine creature with wings like obsidian knives, found itself surrounded and retreated. No shots fired, no casualties, just discipline and adaptation. They made that look almost easy, Lara breathed. It took them 6 days of practice, Mako admitted, and 14 non-fatal injuries. But they learned. That's what humans do. We learn, we adapt, we overcome. Sometimes we do it through brilliance. Sometimes through stubbornness. And sometimes, honestly, through sheer bloody-minded refusal to quit. Klixnar made a sound that Mako's translator rendered as thoughtful contemplation. The Union's military doctrine has remained largely unchanged for 8 centuries. We have tried to apply proven methods Cathara 9. You're suggesting we've been approaching this incorrectly. I'm suggesting, Mako said carefully, that what works on one world might not work on another, and what works for one species definitely won't work for all. Your soldiers are stronger, faster, smarter than ours in a lot of ways, but they're not meaner. Meaner. Zarax's translation matrix seemed to struggle with the term. Nasty. Ornery. Stubborn to the point of stupidity. Mako grinned. Humans didn't become Earth's dominant species because we were the biggest or the fastest. We did it because we were persistent pack hunters who could sweat our prey to death, throw rocks with terrifying accuracy, and had the spite to hold grudges across generations. That mindset, that refusal to accept defeat, it's in our DNA. She pulled up one final image. Lieutenant Amara Ose leading her platoon through a successful navigation of the Crimson Maze, a canyon system where the walls periodically released toxic gas and shifted position through Korvax mechanisms that no one had successfully mapped. Ose had lost 3 platoons before humanity arrived. Her unit had made it through with 2 minor injuries. Lieutenant Ose's solution. Mako continued. She didn't try to map the maze. She had her engineers drill anchor points and string cables as they went. If the walls shifted, they had a physical trail to follow back. If the gas came, they clipped onto the cables and climbed. Simple, crude, effective. That would be considered cheating by our military academies, Lara said. But there was admiration in her tone. We call it thinking outside the box. The Korvash designed this place to test conventional military tactics. We're not a conventional military. Mako closed the displays. Look, I understand your concerns. This planet has killed thousands, and you see humans treating it like an obstacle course. But that's exactly why we're succeeding. We're not approaching it with fear and reverence. We're approaching it with curiosity and determination. And when you fail, Zarax asked, when the planet finally claims more of your soldiers, then we learn from it, Mako said simply. We figure out what went wrong, and we don't make that mistake again. It's not arrogance, Ambassador. It's just how we're wired. Every human child learns to walk by falling down dozens of times. We get back up. It's what we do. The conference broke up an hour later with no decisions made, but Mako could see the shift in how the alien officers looked at her people. Not with horror anymore. With something that might have been hope. She made her rounds through the outpost, checking in with each company. In the rec area, she found Private Nakamura teaching a class on geyser timing to a mixed group of soldiers, using a tablet to display seismic readings and pressure graphs. The key is understanding that nothing on this planet is truly random, Nakamura explained to her attentive audience. The Korvax were methodical. They designed kill zones. Yes, but design systems have patterns. You just have to be patient enough to find them. In the mess hall, Staff Sergeant Maria Kowalski had indeed worked miracles with the rations, somehow creating something that actually smelled appetizing despite being made from reconstituted proteins and vitamin supplements. Soldiers ate with genuine enjoyment rather than grim necessity. In the medical bay, Dr. Jameson Park was reviewing injury reports with his team, noting trends and adjusting treatment protocols. The atmospheric toxins are building up slower in our people than projected, he told Mako. I think the filtration systems are evolving more robust lung tissue. I want to run more tests, but it's possible extended exposure might actually make future generations more resistant. Everywhere she looked, Mako saw humans doing what humans did best, making impossible situations work through ingenuity, cooperation, and sheer determination. She found herself on the observation deck as evening fell, or what passed for evening on a planet with 2 suns that set at different times. Cathara 9's landscape sprawled before her, black volcanic mountains, purple forests that dripped acid, lakes of liquid mercury, and somewhere in the distance the crystalline spires where the Korvash had housed their training masters. A death world designed to kill. Her people were out there playing volleyball. Beautiful, isn't it? Lieutenant Chen, no relation to the deceased Private Chen, stepped up beside her, in a horrifying trying to murder us sort of way. How'd the night navigation exercise go? Perfectly. Well, except for Rodriguez falling into that phosphorescent mud pit. But he's fine. Smells terrible, but fine. Chen grinned. You know what the weirdest part is? I think the troops are actually enjoying this. Mako raised an eyebrow. No, really, Chen continued. I've been talking to them. They feel challenged in a way they haven't before. Not just physically, but mentally. Every day is a puzzle. Every zone is a different problem to solve. And when they solve it, when they make it through something that killed soldiers before them, he trailed off, searching for words. They feel alive, Mako finished. Yeah. They stood in silence, watching Cathara 9's double sunset paint the toxic clouds in shades of amber and crimson. In the distance, Mako could hear something howling. Probably one of the pack predators that hunted in Zone 12. Tomorrow, Bravo Company would be training there, and they'd probably be fine. The alarm brought Mako out of a dead sleep at 0347 hours. Not the standard morning reveille, but the emergency klaxon that meant something had gone seriously wrong. She was dressed and moving in under 30 seconds, muscle memory taking over. The command center was organized chaos when she arrived, displays flickering, officers shouting reports, and at the center of it all, Corporal Sherpa looking grim. Talk to me, Mako ordered. Seismic event in Zone 19, ma'am. Off the charts. The entire sector is destabilizing. Sherpa pulled up the readings. And Alpha Company is in there. 24 soldiers on a deep reconnaissance exercise. Mako felt ice in her veins. Zone 19 was the undergrowth. A massive cave system that the Korvax had engineered with collapsing sections, underground rivers of acid and bioluminescent fauna that used hypnotic light patterns to disorient prey. It was rated as one of the most dangerous training zones, attempted only by the most experienced units. The Alpha Company was good. But they were human. They could die just like anyone else. Communication? Spotted. The seismic activity is interfering with transmissions. We're getting fragments. Captain Ruiz is alive and rallying his people, but... Sherpa hesitated. Ma'am, the Viril are recommending we seal the zone and write them off as training casualties. Standard Union protocol for unrecoverable situations. Get me that Viril liaising. Now. Ambassador Jarix materialized on the holo display moments later, their crystalline features unreadable. Sergeant Okonkwo, I understand you've received our recommendation. I have, and I'm rejecting it. The zone will collapse completely within 3 hours. Any rescue attempt would only add to the casualty count. The mathematics are clear. Math doesn't account for human stubbornness, Mako shot back. We have search and rescue protocols specifically for this. We're not abandoning 24 soldiers while they're still alive. Your species' sentimentality will get more of your people killed. Maybe. But we'll live with those deaths knowing we tried. Can your people say the same? Zorix's chiming grew discordant anger. Mako had learned. In the 3 centuries the Union has operated this facility, we have learned that emotional decisions cost lives. Cold calculation saves them. Then you've been calculating wrong. Mako turned to her team. Get me a CR package ready. I want our best spelunkers, our best combat engineers, and every piece of equipment we have for underground rescue. And someone get Dr. Park prepped for casualties. Ma'am, Lieutenant Osei appeared at her elbow, already geared up. My platoon specialized in urban search and rescue before joining up. We train for collapsed buildings. Unstable terrain. Different setting, same principles. You're not going alone. Wasn't planning on it, but I know caves. Let me lead this. Mako made the calculation every commanding officer dreaded. Risk more lives to save lives. But Chen had been right yesterday. Humans were wired differently. They didn't leave people behind. You have 2 hours, Mako said. If the zone starts final collapse before then, I'm ordering immediate evacuation. No heroics. Yes, ma'am. Osei was already moving. The next 90 minutes were the longest of Mako's career. She watched the telemetry, listened to the broken radio transmissions, and tracked Osei's rescue team as they descended into the undergrowth. The seismic sensors showed constant activity, minor quakes, structural failures, entire sections of the cave system dropping into deeper chambers, and through it all fragmented reports from Alpha Company. Captain Ruiz had them organized into teams, using debris to shore up sections that hadn't collapsed yet. Private Hendricks, their demo expert, was using carefully placed charges to redirect falling rock. Sergeant Kowalski, Maria's younger brother, Mako, realized with a jolt was keeping everyone calm with a running commentary that was equal parts tactical assessment and dark humor. "Telling you, if we die down here, I'm haunting the mess hall." His voice crackled through. "My sister will never make decent food again if she knows I'm watching." Static swallowed the rest. "Ma'am," Sherpa said quietly. "The Thrasan are launching a relief column too." Mako looked up, surprised. General Klixenar appeared on the command display, his insectoid features somehow conveying determination. "My people also do not abandon our own, Sergeant Okonkwo," he said. "We have specialized boring equipment that may prove useful. With your permission, we will coordinate with Lieutenant Osei's team." "Permission granted, General. And thank you. Thank me when everyone is safe." The Thrasan equipment made the difference. Their boring machines, designed for their home world's underground cities, cut through collapsed sections in minutes. Combined with Osei's knowledge of structural integrity and the creative problem-solving that seemed hardwired into every human soldier, they made steady progress. Communications improved as they descended. Mako heard Osei coordinating with Captain Ruiz, establishing safe corridors, marking unstable zones. She heard the Thrasan engineers working in efficient silence, their drilling machines singing a mechanical song through the stone. At the 90-minute mark, they reached Alpha Company. All 24 soldiers were alive. Bruised, battered, some with broken bones and minor acid burns, but alive. They'd survived through teamwork, improvisation, and the same stubborn refusal to die that Mako had described to the alien officers just yesterday. The evacuation took another 40 minutes. The zone was buckling around them, sections collapsing mere meters behind the retreating column. Osei's people carried the injured. The Thrasan used their machines to create barriers against falling debris, and somehow, impossibly, they all made it out. Alpha Company emerged into the harsh daylight of Cathara 9's double suns looking like they'd been through a war. Captain Ruiz limped on a broken ankle, supported by 2 of his sergeants. Private Hendricks had a nasty gash across her forehead, blood dried black on her dark skin. But they were walking, they were breathing, they were alive. Behind them, Zone 19 gave one final groan and collapsed completely, sealing the undergrowth forever. Dr. Park's medical team swarmed immediately, triaging injuries with practiced efficiency. Mako watched it all from the command center, feeling the tension drain from her shoulders. No deaths, no permanent disabilities. Just soldiers who would heal and return to duty. Sergeant Okonkwo. She turned to find Ambassador Jarek standing in the doorway, actually standing there in physical form rather than through hollow display. It was the first time the Vralet had left their secured quarters since arriving at Cathara 9. "Ambassador, I owe you an apology," Serac said, their voice chiming softer than usual. "I recommended abandoning those soldiers based on statistical analysis and historical precedent. The Union has lost rescue teams before, attempting to save those who were mathematically already dead. But you were wrong." "Yes." The crystalline being seemed to shimmer with some internal emotion. "Because we did not account for the variable of human determination, or Thrasan honor for that matter. General Klixenar risked his people because you showed us that some calculations are flawed in their fundamental assumptions." Mako gestured to the viewport, where medics were still treating the rescued soldiers. "We don't see death as an acceptable outcome if there's even a small chance of preventing it. Maybe that's illogical. Maybe it costs us more in the long run. But it's who we are. I am beginning to understand why your species has been so successful here." Serax moved closer to the window. The Korvash designed this planet to break soldiers through fear and attrition. They assumed that rational beings would calculate the costs and withdraw when losses became statistically unacceptable. They never encountered a species that would look at impossible odds and attempt the impossible anyway. Is that a compliment or an insult? Both? Perhaps. There was something that might have been amusement in the crystalline chiming. "Tell me, Sergeant, what would you say if I proposed that the Union adopt your training methodologies for Cathara 9? Mako raised her eyebrows. "I'd say that your species might not be wired the same way we are. What works for humans might not work for the Vril or the Pexians or anyone else, but the principles could be adapted, approaching problems creatively rather than conventionally, utilizing diverse expertise, viewing failure as education rather than defeat. Resorix's form pulsed with light. The Union's military has been stagnant precisely because we rely on what has always worked. We have forgotten how to innovate. And you think we can teach you? I think you already have. The ambassador turned from the window. I will be recommending to the Union Council that humanity be granted full partnership status in the Gauntlet program. Not as trainees, but as instructors. Your methods, your resilience, your stubborn refusal to accept defeat. These are what the galaxy's defenders need to learn. Before Mako could respond, cheering erupted from outside. She looked to see Alpha Company's soldiers being helped into the outpost by their squad mates, greeted with hugs, slaps on the back, and what sounded like every variation of "you stupid lucky bastards" in 20 different human languages. Staff Sergeant Kowalski was crying openly as he embraced his younger brother. Private Hendricks was grinning, despite the blood and the clear pain. Captain Ruiz waved off the medics long enough to salute his rescue team, a gesture that Osea returned with visible emotion. That, Zarek said quietly, is also something the Union has forgotten. That bonds between soldiers are not a weakness to be managed, but a strength to be cultivated. We're social creatures, Mako agreed. We fight for each other as much as for any mission or ideal. Maybe more. Over the following weeks, word of the rescue spread through the Union military. Other species began requesting joint training exercises with human units. The Pexians wanted to learn improvisation techniques. The Thrasan were interested in creative problem-solving methodologies. Even the Vril, who had initially been the most skeptical, sent a delegation of their military psychologists to study human resilience training. Cathara 9 didn't become easier. It was still a planet designed to kill, still claimed lives from those who underestimated it, or made fatal mistakes. But the death toll began to drop across all species as human training methods spread. Lieutenant Osea developed a comprehensive cave rescue protocol that became standard across Union forces. Private Reeves' animal behavior research was published in the Union's military journal and used to train reconnaissance units from a dozen species. Staff Sergeant Kowalski's nutrition program proved that morale and physical health were inseparably linked, revolutionizing military food service throughout the galaxy. And volleyball games near the sulfuric geysers became something of a tradition, with soldiers from multiple species joining in, though the humans still won most matches. Having had the most practice dodging lethal environmental hazards while pursuing recreational activities. 6 months after Alpha Company's rescue, Mako stood in the same observation deck where she'd watched the sunset with Lieutenant Chen. But this time, she wasn't alone. Ambassador Zarek stood beside her, along with General Klixnar and Commander Tilara. I never thought I'd find beauty in this place, Tilara said, watching the toxic clouds swirl. But you humans see it. You see challenge where we saw only death. We see potential, Mako corrected gently. Potential for growth, for learning, for becoming better than we were. That's what the Korvash never understood when they built this place. They saw it as a filter, a way to weed out the weak. We see it as a forge that makes everyone stronger. The Union's military doctrine is being rewritten because of you, Klixnar said. In 8 centuries, no single species has had such an impact. That's because you were all trying to fit into the same mold, Mako replied. You took what worked for one species and assumed it would work for all. We showed you that diversity isn't a weakness, it's the greatest strength any alliance can have. Below them, a mixed unit of humans, Thrasan, and Pexians was navigating the Razorwing forest. They moved as one, each species contributing their unique strengths to the group's success. The Pexians' tactical planning, the Thrasans' raw power, and the humans' adaptable creativity combined into something greater than any single species could achieve. The Korvax wanted to create the perfect soldier, Zarek observed. Instead, they created a place that shows us there is no such thing. Only soldiers who learn, adapt, and work together. And refuse to quit, Mako added with a smile. Yes, the ambassador's chiming sounded almost like laughter. Your species' stubborn, foolish, magnificent refusal to quit. That evening, Mako sat in her quarters writing her quarterly report to Earth Command. She detailed the casualties, minimal, the breakthroughs, numerous, and the overall success of human forces on Cathara 9, exceptional. But she also wrote about the broader impact, The way humanity's approach to the gauntlet was changing how the entire Galactic Union thought about military training. She ended with a note that would probably make the generals back home laugh. Turns out the best preparation for an alien planet designed to kill soldiers is growing up on Earth, where the planet tries to kill you anyway. We've been training for this our entire evolutionary history. We just didn't know it. Outside her window, Cathara 9's deadly beauty continued its eternal display. Somewhere in Zone 7, soldiers were probably still playing volleyball between the geysers. In Zone 12, a night training exercise was teaching new units how to handle pack predators. In the Crimson Maze, engineers were improving the cable system that had saved Lieutenant Osei's platoon. A planet designed to kill. Humans treated it like training, and in doing so, they'd shown the galaxy something it had forgotten: that the measure of a soldier isn't how they face overwhelming odds, but whether they face them at all. Mako closed her report and allowed herself a rare moment of pride. Not just in her soldiers, though they'd earned it 100 times over, but in her species, these stubborn, creative, occasionally idiotic apes who'd clawed their way out of Africa, spread across a deathworld, reached for the stars, and now stood among the galaxy's defenders not despite their origins, but because of them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Zone 15 had some kind of sentient fungal network that adapted to whatever killed it. Zone 20 was underwater, filled with bioluminescent predators and crushing pressure. Zone 23 supposedly had weather patterns that could strip flesh from bone. Tomorrow her soldiers would figure out how to survive all of it, because that's what humans did. They learned, they adapted, they overcame, and they never, ever quit.